Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where off camera here I have designed ourselves a rocket to launch our Skylab, and that is of course based on this guy right here. I did decide not to do the individual tanks here. I think that they probably just removed the skin here so that you could see what was going on in here. It's on display, right? So that's my theory on what happened. Now, they definitely have smaller engine nozzles out here, but in order to lift this thing, we basically needed to use mainsails. So that's what we're going to do here. And we can see that this is definitely like an Apollo upper stage, and then it kind of scales down, although we have it very much going straight, right? We can see here that this is very much just a very straight rocket. And this here is kind of the wrong size. So maybe we need this to be 3.7 meter to actually fit this fairing, right? It has to be this way. Unfortunately, we don't have a vacuum optimized engine that has a fairing that is going to fit 3.7 meter. So we just have to kind of pretend that this one is going to. But we do have the 4 nozzles down here and then the 4 central nozzles. So that'll be absolutely fine. This is 1.89 thrust to weight right now. And that's absolutely okay. I think that'll be no problem whatsoever. I just want to double check our staging before we go. Let's see, this is an engine plate down here. Yeah, that really doesn't matter. And we are going to launch this. I think we're ready to put this out in orbit. So that'll be absolutely phenomenal to get this out there. I did put on a battery, which we did not previously have, and I also put on a transmitter, which we didn't previously have either. None of those are particularly exciting, and it's not really all that important where they were put either, but they are there. I can assure you of that. We can take a look here and clip on in and hopefully see something. It's kind of hard to see. Okay, it's very hard to see. But there is a battery here. I believe this is our, that's our reaction wheel. The battery is right over top of the reaction wheel, I think. I'm pretty sure. We have one, right? Yes, we definitely have a battery here. So we can see that we have a battery there somewhere. Oh, that's our oxidizer. Yeah, there we go. We can see we have a battery right there. A nice big one. And we also have that transmitter. It's on there. It doesn't really matter. We're going to launch this thing. Let's go. Do we want to launch with 1.9 thrust to weight? Sure, why not? 1.9 thrust to weight is absolutely decent here. So off we go. My main regret with this is that this is really the wrong size. It really, really is. We just lack the ability to do anything at all about it, unfortunately. I shopped around for a rocket engine that would fit that, but we just don't have one. I believe we need to unlock very heavy rocketry in order to get it, which is sad. No doubt about that. But let's just push our way up through this atmosphere for now. And we're going to head on over to the horizon very shortly. So about 20 kilometer apoapsis right now. Let's start heading over. And of course, we're going to want to get horizontal velocity up as soon as we make our way over to the horizon here. And really, we want to be moving a little bit faster than this. We've got about 30 seconds of burn left in these engines. So for now, this is looking decent. This thing controls kind of weird, to be honest. It controls kind of weird. But we'll just park here at horizontal velocity up and call it good. So all is looking phenomenal here. We can see our apoapsis is already nicely in space. And there's those engines out. And let's just continue to burn here at the horizon. And we need to push our apoapsis up really very high. Very high indeed. Our target altitude here is, just double checking, 442 kilometers. So that's definitely going to be a thing. Let's deploy our fairing to boost up our thrust to weight a little bit. But I mean, we've got plenty of fuel for this, right? No doubt about that. We've got a lot of fuel here. 460 seconds of burn? Yeah, we've got a lot. So we're just going to continue burning this direction. We do need to get like 500 meters per second, though. Time to apoapsis is going down, but very slowly. So I think we're good. I was a little concerned about the thrust in this stage. In fact, my original proposal for this had 2 Kerbal S3 7200s here, and it was just underpowered. There's no doubt about that. This design was quite underpowered at that point. But it looks like we're going to be good with this not really slight tweak. That was a ridiculous amount of fuel, to be clear. Time to apoapsis is going up now, so we're absolutely golden on this thrust. No problem whatsoever there. We're going to be deploying these. Oh, another thing that I did was I swapped these hinges, or not really swapped, but I put them on separately so that they are no longer joined together. So what that ends up meaning is we can deploy these one at a time, right? So that's great. For the moment, we're not going to deploy them yet. We're just going to keep them stowed, and that's perfect. 400 kilometers on the apoapsis right now, and we're just continuing to push this on up. This is going to be such a high orbit that we're not really going to have any major issues with that. That said, I did not include any experiments on the actual craft here, so we're going to have to bring those with our crew that visit, right? And that's fine. We're not too concerned about that. We'll definitely be interested in bringing a crew up here. In fact, how many crews ended up visiting Skylab? I'm checking here. Let's see. Launchers, rescue, and canceled missions. Plans for reuse after the last mission. Ah, here we go. So Skylab 2, Skylab 3, and Skylab 4. However, Skylab 5 was canceled. So there were 3 crews that went up to Skylab. Okay, sounds good. So we're keeping an eye on this, targeting 442 for our apoapsis height. And we're at about 300 right now. What is our inclination like? 0.3 degrees? Okay, we're probably going to look to alter that. But we're looking for 442. Okay, I'm just slowing down our thrust here. Little further. There we go. 442. Fantastic. So we're actually already in orbit. Our periapsis is significantly over the atmosphere here, but we're going to be targeting a periapsis of, as I double check here, 434. Cool. We're also going to want to change our inclination. So over here at the apoapsis, which is actually very similar to Sputnik's, we are going to... That's actually interesting. I hadn't realized that. We're going to bring this on up to be 434. So currently it's 242. And 441. It's not quite circularized, right? So 434. Right around here. That's close enough. Phenomenal. So with that being the case, we'll head on over to the node, and we should definitely start to do some deployments here. So, first things first, let's deploy our top solar panels. So we're going to unfold this, and let's get these guys deployed. Excellent. And then let's also deploy one of these. Which one is the one that's supposed to be deployed? When looking at this from the top, because only one of these is deployed in the actual photographs that I see, when looking at it from the top, it's the one on the right. Okay, so with that in mind, we would deploy out over here. There we go, and we would extend these solar panels. This one's mildly in the way here. We could actually just have this sit kind of out of the way at a 90-degree angle. So about like that. Just so it is a little bit more out of the way, right? I would like it if these were longer. That would be nice, but they are not, and we're kind of upside down right now. We could definitely roll this, though, to be less upside down. And that is indeed exactly what we'll do. Cool. So let's warp on around and get up to the apoapsis here. Perfect. And our electric charge is no problem. We don't expect it to be a problem. So about 50 seconds here. Let's warp on forward. 40 seconds. 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0. mark. Okay. So let's get Skylab into a proper orbit, and then we'll jettison these components here. So that'll just be decoupling this decoupler, right? That's all that is. Basically just a single staging event here. So that'll be fine. We're targeting 434 for our periapsis. Excellent. That's 435. Okay, let's let this switch around to it's going to the node here. We definitely overshot it very, very slightly here, but not by much at all. So that's great. Let's get into position to break this a little bit. There we go. 442 by 434. We'll call that good. Next, of course, we're going to need to change our inclination. So, somewhere around here-ish is probably about when that would need to happen. Okay, that's not the correct timing. I can tell you that right now. Oh, hello, I saw 0.1 there? Where was that 0.1? Here. Cool. Other direction. And 0.0. Okay, I like it. So that's going to be only 9.9 meters per second. We've only got 154 meters per second in this. So we're probably going to have to deorbit this with our Apollo craft, to be honest. I'm not surprised that we don't have a lot of Delta V in this. This is an Oscar D after all, but it's definitely a thing. Yeah, we'll run that off of our Apollo craft. It'll be fine. Cool. Now, if we really wanted to be fancy, we could deploy these solar panels as well. We can't undeploy these, though, so they'll have to do. 50 seconds, 40, 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay. About half a meter per second, and is that good enough? That's good enough. 0.0 degree inclination, 442 by 434. I like it. So that looks great. This is the correct orbit to be in. So we should actually get our payment for that, which we will absolutely do. And we'll we get 200,000 for that. 1 and 2. Fantastic. So now we need to get ourselves an Apollo to come up here and come to visit this. I wonder if we're going to collide here. That'll be interesting. We might want to bring some repair kits just in case. But we do need to jettison this, right? So we'll actuate this. And again. And maybe again. That's mildly awkward. Okay, we'll just go to Killrot, and we'll position this to be, say, radial out. Actually, let's just position it to be prograde. That'll be fine. So let's get this guy rotated right on over, doing some whiplash here. Cool. And we'll just get it aligned about like that. Excellent. Okay, so now we need to get ourselves our Apollo up here. Unfortunately, that did change our apoapsis by like 4 kilometers, but honestly, that's just because of the decoupling throwing us around. That's not something that would happen in reality. So I'm not concerned about that. We hit our target orbit before the decouple, so it's all good. Let's hop on back to the Space Center, because now we need to modify an Apollo. And how do we want to modify this Apollo, you might ask? Well, let's take a quick look at our current Apollo setup. And we know that we want to change this anyway, so we're going to be able to do some pretty decent changes to our Apollo setup. That'll be great. So we're going to modify this, and let's see what we've got. We definitely need a docking port. So let's open on up our Apollo craft here. This is going to be based on Apollo 17, the latest Apollo craft, and we're going to ditch this fairing. Step 1. Fairing goes away. Step 2. The lunar module. The lunar module also goes away. We do not need this. So that's great. Inside of here, we definitely want to be bringing a Science Junior. So I think the Science Junior would go right here. We probably don't need the Probodobodyne Octo for this. So that's a Mystery Goo containment unit. This is a Science Junior. Okay, so that's the Probodobodyne Octo there. We'll get rid of that. We don't need that. A Klimpatron Docking Port Junior can go here. And then these are our drogue chutes. So we would have a pair of drogue chutes. Actually, let's go for quad drogue chutes. Quad drogues here. And then we could also go for quad radial mount parachutes here. Something like this. That would be a viable thing. Now, we kind of want this to be smaller in size if we could at all help it. That would be ideal. Let's see if we have a good way to do that. So that would end up meaning that this would get redesigned, right? So we would end up looking for this to be a 1.25 meter in size. So the Mark II command pod, is that 1.25 meter? No, I think that's 1.875 meter. Okay. Because looking at this is 1.25, this is 1.875, this is 2.5, this is 3.75. So we would definitely want this to be smaller. Okay. So that would pretty much mean a Mark I command pod. Unfortunately, that also means that this is going to be kind of long, but that's okay. Let's reroute this. So we're going to reroute this part to be the Mark I command pod, and then we're going to grab this stuff. We're going to be working just off of this Mark I command pod for the time being. We're going to need to put in a Mark I crew cabin because we need to be able to hold like 3 people, right? And then we definitely need to have our service bay here. So let's get this attached here for now. I want to grab our service bay, but we're going to need the smaller size of service bay, right? So this Klimpatron Docking Port Junior would end up going here. This has a built-in reaction wheel, so that's great. We will need to have a service bay. So we're going to put in a 1.25 meter service bay. We would also want to put in a Science Junior here. So that is, of course, under Science. We would grab a Science Junior and we put that there. And this is what we'd be looking to return. So we would then have this be a heat shield. So a 1.25 meter heat shield here. Then we would need a decoupler. So we would use a TD12 decoupler. Then we would attach this on, although this would need some fuel. So we would put in like a T400. Like this. Okay. Well, that's definitely a step in the right direction. I do want to have some amount of power here, so we're going to put on a Z200 rechargeable battery bank. We do have a reaction wheel in this, but it's a very weak reaction wheel. We may want to consider adding an additional one. So like a, not even a medium reaction wheel assembly, an advanced inline stabilizer, somewhat like this. I would definitely like to have some amount of RCS on this. So we would need to put in some RCS thruster blocks. We'll do those here. Seems okay. And then we could also put in some RCS fuel, which we will, of course, need. RCS fuel does tend to be a useful thing to have, after all. And what size are we looking for? Not any of those. That size. Okay. So that'll do. This can now be retired. We no longer need the Mark I-3 command pod for this. The service bay, we're no longer needing it either. So this service bay, I want to actually rotate. There we go. Have it open like so. Inside of that, we need our science experiments. So we need our magnetometer, which we'll actually put outside. That'll go right here. We're going to need our mystery goo containment unit. We're going to need our 2-hot thermometer, not a surface scanning module, but a 2-hot thermometer. We'll need an atmospheric fluid spectrovariometer, which I'll actually mount on the outside over here. We'll put a seismic accelerometer that we're never going to be able to use. We will put a barometer in here as well. Where's the barometer at? I'm probably just blind, aren't I? Yes, it's right here. So the press map barometer goes in there. What other experiments do we have? That's kind of it for the time being. So if we want to remove things from this stack, a good one to do would be a rechargeable battery bank. We can put batteries on the top in here. I think that's a good idea. Let's put in some rechargeable batteries here. There we go. And we would probably want to have some form of power generation here, right? That would be a helpful thing. So some sort of a retractable photovoltaic panel. Something like this should do. Excellent. So this is, of course, not Apollo 17. This is going to be Skylab 2. We don't need this anymore. And let's check our staging. This is definitely a little too tall up at the top now, but otherwise, in terms of like the sizing, I like this a lot better. It's certainly a little tall up here. I'm not going to lie about that, but for now, we're lacking parachutes. Parachutes would help. Parachutes would definitely help. We're going to put a couple of drogue chutes on here. I'm going to put the drogues here, and then we're going to put a couple of main chutes on here. So a main chute is, of course, going to go on each side here. And then we do need launch escape tower as well. So a launch escape tower is under, what, utility? Yes. And we would go with probably the launch escape system junior here. So it would go like this. That has a decoupler built into it in theory, and that should be fine. Okay, so this is our Skylab 2 design that we're going with. This is definitely much closer to the Saturn V design. I'm not going to call it great, but it is definitely better. So all of this is fine. Checking our staging here. Yes. Yes. This rocket motor should probably be separated out. And then this decoupler would go here, and then we would have our drogue chutes. Looks good. So it would end up being something kind of like this. Fantastic. So we're ready to launch this and head up to Skylab. That'll be absolutely great. But that is really more of a next episode sort of thing. So I'm going to put a cut in here, and next episode, we're going to head on up to Skylab. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Andy McGar, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, Kintogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. Also, I just changed the FLTX 400 fuel tank over to white. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.